Right, listen up. Newcastle United are about to get a £75 million injection that's going to completely transform their season. But here's the thing, it's not what you think. Before I reveal exactly what this game-changing boost is, we've got two absolutely massive stories you need to hear first. One of them involves a legend who might be making a shock comeback to international football, and the other is a heartbreaking tribute to a man who brought the greatest player in Newcastle's history to St James's Park. Stick with me through these first two stories, because that third one, that's the one that's going to blow your mind. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Let's dive in. Story 1. Trippier's England comeback hint. Alright, let's start with something that's got everyone talking. Remember Kieran Trippier? Of course you do. The Newcastle fullback who decided to hang up his England boots after the Euros this summer? Well, guess what? He's having second thoughts, and this could be absolutely massive. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't he retire from international football? Yes, he did. But here's the thing about retirement. Sometimes you miss it more than you thought you would, and Trippier's being completely honest about it. Speaking to Sky Sports, he said something really interesting. He admitted he misses everything about playing for England, the laughs with the lads, the staff, the whole atmosphere. And then he said those three magic words, never say never. Let me put this into context for you. Thomas Tuchel is now England's manager, right? And he's doing an incredible job. 8 wins out of 8 games in World Cup qualifying. 8, and they haven't even conceded a single goal. That's the kind of form that makes players want to be part of something special. Trippier's been chatting to Tuchel a few times, and he's got nothing but praise for him. He called him a top coach, and coming from someone who's played under some of the best managers in the world, that means something. Trippier even said that England have been so close to winning a major tournament for years now, and maybe, just maybe, Tuchel could be the man to finally bring that trophy home. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Trippier was asked straight up if he'd come back if England needed him. His answer? If he gets the call, he'd never turn down the opportunity. He's technically retired at the moment, but that door isn't locked, it's just slightly closed. Think about the experience Trippier would bring. He's played in World Cups, he's been to Euros, he's won trophies, and he's not the only experienced player in that England squad. You've got Jordan Pickford, Harry Kane, even his Newcastle teammate Dan Burn. Mix that experience with all the young talent coming through, and you've got yourself a proper team. Here's something else to consider. Tuchel recently said he's got a long list of about 60 players he wants to contact personally. Not just call them, mind you, he wants to FaceTime them or even visit them at their training grounds. He wants to look them in the eye and explain why they're in or out of the squad, what they need to improve, or whether it's just his tactical choice. That's the kind of detail and personal touch that can make players want to play for you. And it's not just Trippier. There are other lads at Newcastle who could be in the mix. Tino Livramento would have been in the last squad if he hadn't got injured. Lewis Hall is knocking on the door. Jacob Murphy came really close last season. Anthony Gordon's already in the setup, and Nick Pope would have been there too if he hadn't picked up an injury. Dan Burn recently told Chronicle Live that it's brilliant for Newcastle as a club to have so many players in and around the England squad. It shows the level the team is operating at now. So what does this all mean? Well, if Trippier does get that call from Tuchel, we could see him pulling on an England shirt again at next summer's World Cup in the United States, Canada and Mexico. At his age, it would probably be his last dance on the international stage. And what a stage to go out on. The question is, will Tuchel pick up the phone? And more importantly, is Trippier still good enough to deserve that call? Based on what we've seen from him at Newcastle this season, I'd say he's still got plenty to offer. He's consistent, he's experienced, and he knows what it takes to perform at the highest level. Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, if that call comes, Kieran Trippier will be ready to answer it. And wouldn't that be something special?
Right, now we need to talk about something much more somber, but equally important. This is a story about a man who you might not have heard of unless you're a proper Newcastle diehard, but trust me, this man shaped the club's destiny in ways you wouldn't believe. Russell Cushing has passed away at the age of 78 after a short illness. And if that name doesn't ring a bell, let me tell you exactly why it should. Picture this. It's August 19th, 1982, 6:30 in the evening. Newcastle United are in a private room at the Gosforth Park Hotel, and they're about to make an announcement. Russell Cushing, who was the club secretary at the time, stands up in front of a packed room of journalists. He's a bit nervous, a bit self-conscious even, but he's got something massive to say. And then he delivers one of the most famous lines in Newcastle United history. "We're in heaven, we've got Kevin." Kevin Keegan, England captain, Liverpool legend, two-time European Footballer of the Year, and he just signed for Newcastle United, a club that was stuck in the second division at the time, struggling to find its identity. Was it a bit cheesy? Yeah, probably. Was it embarrassing for a serious football man like Cushing? Maybe. But did it work? Absolutely. Because they needed to make noise, they needed to beat the drum, and they needed to tell the world that Newcastle United were back in business. And boy, were they back. Keegan led Newcastle to promotion, and years later, when he came back as manager, he created the Entertainers, that incredible team that revolutionised English football with their attacking style. Russell Cushing was right there in the middle of it all. But here's the thing. Russell wasn't just the man who announced one signing. He gave Newcastle United 36 years of his life. 36 years. He started as assistant secretary in 1971 and worked his way up to chief operating officer, leaving in 2007. He even served on the board at various points. Think about what he lived through. He saw Newcastle drop to the second division. He saw them rise back up to the Premier League. He was there when they qualified for the Champions League. He dealt with multi-million-pound transfers and superstar players. He ran the day-to-day operations during some of the most turbulent times in the club's history. One of the most impressive things about Russell was his diplomatic skills. When the Magpie Group took over Newcastle in 1991, there was chaos. People were losing their jobs, old regimes were being swept away. Russell could easily have been one of the casualties. After all, he was part of the old guard. But Sir John Howe, the man leading the takeover, was so impressed with Russell's professionalism and his dedication to putting the club before individuals that he kept him on. And Russell played a massive part in Newcastle's Eyes from the Ashes during those incredible years in the 90s. Russell wasn't even from Newcastle originally. He was born in East Anglia and worked as a trainee accountant. He got involved in football through Norwich City, and it was actually a former Newcastle striker, Albert Bennett, who tipped him off about the assistant secretary job at St James's Park. Russell travelled north in June 1971, and the rest, as they say, is history. He was recognised for his contributions too. He got the Football League's Long Service Award in 1993, and the Northumberland FA honoured him for his dedication to football in the North East. After leaving Newcastle in 2007, he even opened a UEFA and FA licensed football agency. Russell Cushing might not have scored goals or made tackles, but he was absolutely crucial to Newcastle United's story. He was there for the highs and the lows, the triumphs and the disasters. He was the steady hand behind the scenes, making sure everything ran smoothly, even when chaos was swirling all around him. And now he's gone. The football world has lost the true gentleman, and Newcastle United have lost a legend. Rest in peace, Russell Cushing. You'll be remembered.
Story 3. The £75 million boost. Right, here we go. This is the big one. The story I promised you at the start, and trust me, it's worth the wait. Newcastle United are about to get a £75 million boost. Now, before you start thinking they've signed some superstar striker or landed a massive sponsorship deal, let me stop you right there. This is something completely different, and in many ways, it's even better. Eddie Howe, Newcastle's manager, is about to get 2 players back from injury. Just 2 players, but these aren't just any players. These are Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall. And if you're wondering how 2 fullbacks can possibly be worth 75 million quid, stick with me and I'll explain exactly why this changes everything. First, let's talk about Lewis Hall. This lad is only 21 years old, but he's already shown he's got the quality to be Newcastle's first choice left back for years to come. The problem? He's barely played this season. He's been dealing with ankle and foot injuries that have kept him out since March when Newcastle won the Carabao Cup. Every time he's gotten close to coming back, he's had another setback. It's been frustrating for everyone, for him, for the manager, for the fans. But now, finally, he's fit again. He proved it by playing for England under-21s during the international break, and he's expected to start against Manchester City this weekend because Dan Burn is suspended. Howe's going to be careful with him, of course. You don't rush someone back from that kind of injury layoff, but the important thing is his injury problems should be behind him now. Then there's Tino Livramento. He's been out since September with a knee injury, missing 2 whole months of football. He even had to deputise at left back earlier in the season when Howe was injured, and he did a brilliant job, but that's not his natural position. He's a right back through and through. Livramento is expected to be back in the squad this weekend, probably starting on the bench after such a long time out, but just having him available again is massive for Newcastle. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Why are these 2 players so important? It's not that Dan Burn and Kieran Trippier have been playing badly, they haven't. Both of them are incredibly consistent, and Burn's probably more comfortable at centre-back anyway. It's about what Hall and Livramento bring to the team that's different. These 2 are attacking fullbacks, proper modern fullbacks who love to get forward, who have energy to burn, who can get up and down the pitch all game long. And when you've got fullbacks like that, it changes everything about how your team plays. Let's start with the wingers. When you've got Livramento bombing down the right and Hall charging down the left, it automatically pushes your wingers higher up the pitch. Suddenly, Anthony Gordon and Jacob Murphy have got overlapping runs behind them. Defenders can't just double up on them anymore because they've got to worry about the fullback as well. That extra threat, that extra option makes Newcastle so much more dangerous going forward. But it's not just about attacking. Having quick, energetic fullbacks also helps Newcastle's famous high press. You know that aggressive, in-your-face style that made them so exciting last season? That's been missing at times this year, and a big part of that is because Burn and Trippier can't cover the ground quite as quickly as Hall and Livramento. With those 2 back in the team, Newcastle's forward players can press higher up the pitch, knowing they've got the legs behind them to recover if things go wrong. And with Sandro Tonali sitting in midfield as cover, it's the perfect system. Here's another massive point. Newcastle have got huge hopes for their back four of the future. Livramento, Hall, Malik Thiaw and Sven Botman. That's a defence that could serve the club for the next decade. Young, talented, athletic, good on the ball. Everything you want in a modern back four. The problem? They've only played together once. Back in September, they kept a clean sheet and a goalless draw at Bournemouth, and then the injuries started piling up. We haven't seen them together since. The sooner that unit gets playing together regularly, the sooner they can build that understanding, that chemistry that makes great defences into legendary ones. And here's the kicker. This is why I said it's a £75 million boost. When you add up what Newcastle paid for these players and what they're worth now, you're looking at serious money. Hall cost about £35 million from Chelsea, and Livramento was around £40 million from Southampton. That's £75 million worth of talent that's been sitting in the treatment room. Getting them both back fit and firing is like making two massive signings without spending a penny. It's not just about what they bring individually, it's about how they make everyone else better. The wingers play better, the midfielders play better, the press works better, the whole team clicks into gear. Eddie Howe knows this. He's been desperate to get these two back, and now he's finally going to get his wish. Saturday's game against Manchester City might come a bit too soon for both of them to start, but in the coming weeks, we're going to see the real Newcastle United. This could genuinely be the turning point of their season. They've been good, but they haven't quite hit the heights of last year. Getting Hall and Livramento back could be the difference between finishing in the top 6 and pushing for the Champions League spots. So yeah, £75 million, 2 players, 1 massive boost, and it's going to change everything for Newcastle United. Mark my words, when these two are back playing regularly, we're going to see a completely different Newcastle. More attacking, more aggressive, more exciting. Exactly the way Eddie Howe wants them to play. The waiting is almost over, the cavalry is coming, and Newcastle United are about to kick into a whole new gear. So there you have it, 3 massive stories from the world of Newcastle United. Kieran Trippier keeping the door open for one last England adventure, a heartfelt tribute to the legendary Russell Cushing, and the £75 million boost that's going to transform Eddie Howe's team. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you don't miss tomorrow's news. Drop a comment below and let me know. Do you think Trippier should come out of retirement for the World Cup? And how big of a difference will Livramento and Hall make when they're back? Cheers for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with more Newcastle United news. Up the Mags!